What's going on, fam? How y'all doing, man? Welcome to another installment of TSC Unleased. What's good with it? How y'all doing in the chat? How you doing, fam? GM Kev Unleashed. Mr. Jerry Unleashed. What's going on? Strucid God, my son in the building as well. Who that, Kelly? My boy Kelly Bell. How you doing, sir? Hope you're well out there, my man. I've heard from you in a while. Good to see you in the chat as well, family. Much love to you, and Most High bless you. All right, let's keep it moving in the chat on this edition of TSC Unleashed. We'll be talking NBA playoffs. And listen, man, we had a show last night. DC came on for Uncle Mozzi, who had to attend to some business. And I'm going to keep it real with you, man. We kind of just marched the Orlando Magic out of this series, but don't you know the Orlando Magic are fired up and handling business against the Milwaukee Bucks. Listen, you never can tell, can you? Anyway, we're going to bring in my co-host of TSC Unleashed, Uncle Mozzi's in the building. What's going on, Uncle Mozzi?
What's up with it? What's up? How y'all doing? I'm the one y'all love to hate.
I'm pretty sure GM Kev is chomping at the bit for any off-brand commentary he might not agree with from you, of course, sir. But it's all good. All right, we're going to keep it rolling in this edition. Like I said, we're going to talk about the NBA playoffs, what's going on, and also some SEC news as SEC did release their schedule. And we're going to talk about some of the safety precautions that the SEC brought on as well. So outside of that, we'll be doing a Tough Tiger Talk for all our Tough Tiger Talk people out there. That is also another thing we do, LSU football tough show talk called Tough Tiger Talk. That's on YouTube as well. You can feel free to look that up on YouTube. I think it's in the links, those links in the description section below as well for you to find that channel. But we exclusively talk about all things Tiger football, baby. And we keeps it hard just like we do for our Saints talk. And by the way, for the Saints commentary, we'll have a short show coming up after this show covering some of the latest news. Of course, Andrews Pete, broken hand. We'll get into that. We'll talk a little bit on that. Also tonight, and TSC Q&A live for our Patreon and YouTube members will be tonight at 6 p.m., so please mark your calendars. All right, Mozzi, coming into this one, fam, looking at the NBA playoffs, of course, bro. Man, the Milwaukee Bucks, they're taking care of business, man. They taking care of business right now. Well, they finished the game. I was looking at I was looking at it a minute ago, and the game wasn't over with. It's over with. They've beaten the Bucks 122-110, and this is something else. What you think, man?
Well, first of all, let me just say, nobody saw this coming. But I
Man,
mean, it's not
nobody.
like nobody saw it coming. But you know, just a statement to how great the game is itself. Where eight could be the one, or the underdog could always prevail. Because these are the best players in the world, and they're separated by not that much. A coach here, an assistant coach there, a point guard here, a center there. So it's not like football where you have these big disparaging gaps. In most cases, basketball is a different game, and we can't pretend that Orlando hadn't been playing, fairly good defense all season. Their issue has always been they just couldn't put the ball in the bucket. But today it was clicking on all cylinders. They still got a really, really tough, long, hard road ahead of them. But I mean, anything's possible. They stolen one in the bubble. I mean, maybe it's because they have somewhat home court advantage playing in the bubble, and they are the Orlando Magic. Maybe that's it. I don't know. But it was a great game. I'm not big on either one of those teams. Not big on the East, except for Boston. Um, but I mean, it was a fantastic game. Can't discount the win. Can't discount the loss. I'm sure a lot of people were expecting the Bucks to sweep Orlando, being
That's what
an
I
eight
said
seed that
last night.
kind of being an eight seed kind of backed their way into the playoffs, but they got there, and this is why you play the game. It's two different seasons. There's a regular season, and then there's the postseason, and that's why they separate the two because they mean two totally different things. So whatever you did for the first 70 something games or whatever it wound up shaking out to be, that doesn't count anymore. Now it's simply is a matter of who's showing up to play, who wants it worse than the other guy.
And the crazy part about it is very few people mention two real crucial items of the NBA playoff bubble here is the fact that the Toronto Raptors are the defending world champions. Nobody even mentions that.
Hmm.
And the Orlando Magic are relatively playing at home in the bubble. We do realize this. This is pretty much Orlando's stadium. I mean, not stadium per se, but this is, if anybody had a home field advantage that should be comfortable in the NBA bubble, it's the Orlando Magic. Come on now.
Yep.
So, I
Yep.
mean, you look at it 122 to 110. We'll dive into this one here. And looking at the team statistics on this, 44 of 89 for the Magic. That's 49% that they shot today against the Bucks, who were 39 of 90 for 43%. Tough to beat a team when they're shooting from the field almost 50%. Then they lit them up from downtown for almost 40%. 16 of 41 for them and 14 of 42 for the Bucks, which is 33%. Tough to beat a team when they're shooting 50% from the field and 40% from downtown. Plus, they were an absolute wildebeest from the free throw line. They were 95% from the free throw line, 18 of 19. So they had it on their mind in this one. Bucks were 18 of 28 for 64% in the matchup. The advantage rebound wise went to the Bucks 47. I mean, it actually was the Magic 48 to 47. The assist battle was tied up 28 to piece, and it was just a really interesting game to go down to it. The Bucks top man Vujicic stopped up. He was pretty good in this one. He played 37 minutes. Mozzie, 35 points, 13 rebounds in the matchup. He was a beast. Plus Fultz, who's really found his own. Markelle Fultz, who was considered a relative bust in his days with Philadelphia, the trade that occurred. He has found a home in Orlando. The pressure is off him. He had the opportunity to kind of work on himself. 15 points in the matchup, 6 assists in 29 minutes. Also, Gary Clark, 15 points in 28. Terrence Ross lit him up too. When at 28 minutes, he had 18 points in the matchup. So the young Magic really doing what they got to do in this one, and they showed up big. Now, as far as the Bucks are concerned, Giannis, 31 points in 34 minutes, 17 rebounds, 7 assists, just an absolute wildebeest in his own right, but nobody really considerably to step up to help him in this one as they fall out. 12, Chris Middleton, 14 points in 31 minutes, 15 for Bledsoe, 10 from Wes Matthews, 16 from George Hill. With all that production, they still fell short by 12. So really interesting. The Magic are now up 1-0 in that series. Of course, I think things will normalize, eventually normalize, and come back around and get back to what we customarily see. They might stolen the game here, but I think the Bucks will probably reshuffle around and come back. What you think about that, Mozzie?
Well, they'll definitely come back around. I mean, this is far from over. They're definitely not going to.
Right.
They're definitely not going to just take it lying down. But this is one of those things, man. You never allow anybody or give anybody that confidence. When you give them that confidence boost, anything could happen. They should know this. I mean, they've been here before. I could understand if this was a Bucks team of 2 or 3 years ago, and of course, this has always been the stickler on them. I mean, they play well in the regular season, and they get to the postseason, and I mean, they become invisible. And when you become invisible, and you allow people to sneak in and come through the back door and just hang around, and just nag their way back into the game, nag their way into staying in games, then anything can happen. I mean, if you can kill a team, just come and kill a team. Don't let them hang around and just linger and become an aggravation. Don't do that. Kill them and get it over with. Play how you're supposed to play. Again, this also extends the amount of games that you're playing, because now instead of a 4 game sweep, they've definitely locked themselves into 5 games. Those are the small things that could definitely affect them when they do, if and when they do get to the Eastern Conference Finals and eventually the NBA Finals. You put wear and tear on your body. You're already playing under duress. You're already playing a real condensed race to the finish line types of game, of season in the bubble. So you don't want to add to that. You want to try and be able to take off and relax, and you playing back to back games. I mean, it's just a lot of things that goes into that, and that's why when you look at some of the veteran players and the older players, even like Kawhi, that's why game management and being able to load manage your star players is very important. But now you've automatically booked yourself a 5th game, and that could hurt you down the stretch when you play a fresher team that may have just swept a couple of their opponents, may have younger legs, may have less injuries. We don't know anything. You play extra games, you make yourself susceptible to injuries, you make yourself susceptible to technical fouls. You saw what happened in the Dallas game. You saw what happened in the Dallas game last night,
Yes, yes, I
which
did.
we'll probably touch on that later. Okay, well, you open yourself up to those kind of things happening when you extend stuff, when you extend series, when you don't have to, when you shouldn't. And I think that the coaching staff, I think they got to get together, especially Giannis. He's got to you got to get with those guys and say, hey man, we're better than that. No disrespect to Orlando, and I'm not discounting them anyway, but this was more than likely Milwaukee not paying attention to them rather than them just actually beating Milwaukee as the score reflects.
Yeah, that was. I think definitely Milwaukee will come back around. Coach Bud to get them fired up, and they'll play better. Lopez really didn't help in this matchup. He usually is a guy that kind of helps. He played 30 minutes, only chunked in 5 points or 4 rebounds. He has to do better than that. So is
Mm-hmm.
Chris Middleton. Chris Middleton is seen as the second best player on his team behind Giannis, and he only gave him 14 points at 31 minutes. He has to step up his production, have closer to maybe an 18, 19, north of that type of scorch to kind of help him. And Bledsoe was kind of down 228 minutes, 15 points. The bench gave him pretty decent production, but you can't hang it all on Giannis to do it. You got to be able to play as a balanced team. I ultimately think they'll make the adjustments. Coach Bud is a hell of a coach, man, coming from that Popovich tree. I expect him to resync this team and use this as motivation. I wouldn't be surprised if the Bucks didn't wield on Orlando full straight and knock them out in 5. So, I mean, we'll see how it shakes. Orlando is really young and exciting as well, and we'll just see how it moves on. Let's go on to our next matchup that's currently happening right now. It's the end of the first quarter right now. The Indiana Pacers are beating the Miami Heat 33-27 right now at the end of the first. Mozzie, we talked a lot about the previews of these matchups last night on last night's show. You see what's going on right now. Pretty close game. DC and I both agreed that the matchups, out of all the matchups in the NBA, restart the playoffs here, the Pacers, Miami had a really close fitting. These teams were only separated by one game difference in terms of their win loss record. Currently, right now, Butler is the top dude on his team. He has 8 points. Brogdon has 6 on the Pacers side of things. We know about Butler and Warren. And Warren's been spectacular. TJ Warren's been pretty much dominating the NBA restart. He's the top dude scoring wise. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
really lighting them up. And he has come alive to help that young Pacer team play. So what are your thoughts on this matchup? Pacers 33-27 at the end of the first right now.
Well, I mean, it's one of those even pick games, series actually, obviously, but I think Miami is the better team. I think Miami's been a better team, despite what the record says. I think that Miami has been the better team all year long, and I think that Miami is entering this playoff series because, as we could all remember and attest to that, coming into the season, especially after that Chris Paul trade to Oklahoma City, Miami was, I guess, deemed incapacitated, and there were rumors about Chris Paul potentially just making a run through in OKC, a pit stop, if you will, and then flying straight down to Miami to join that franchise. And then when that didn't happen, I think a lot of people wrote Miami off this year to do anything. I think they're one of the teams that were benefited the most from the layover due to COVID. And the reason I say that is, as with many teams, um, everything is rhythmic, right? So when some of these superstar powerhouse teams, the Clippers, the Lakers, the Bucks, when these teams are in full rhythm and everything's on display and they're clicking on all cylinders, it's just hard to stop. Fortunately for some of the lesser talented teams, that training effect or that avalanche sometimes could take 2, 3 weeks, a month, 2 months. It just depends. But once it happens, it's over with. For instance, the Lakers prior to the COVID layoff were on a tear through the Western Conference, if you remember.
Yes.
And when they come to the bubble, what were they like 3 and 4?
Yeah, they struggle.
They struggle, right? Because those type of egos and those types of players, everybody got to have the ball, and I mean, everybody just has their own thing going on. So some of the lesser talented teams who are a lot more humble as far as egos and attitudes are concerned, they're just really happy to be here. where the other teams feel as though they're supposed to be here, and they feel as though that the lesser talented team they're going to beat them anyway. So Miami, one of the teams that benefited largely due to a weaker Eastern Conference versus the West, and because of the COVID layover, they were able to come to the bubble, take care of business. They didn't. They had a they were pretty decent, and now here they are under Eric Spoelstra tutelage. That he's a. I mean, obviously a championship winning coach, so he knows how to get those guys motivated. He knows what to tell those guys, the kind of battle they're in. And they got a couple time tested, battle tested veterans on their team that I think if they can build up some confidence from the young guys, those veterans and that leadership from Spoelstra, who himself I didn't think was a really good coach when he first entered the league. I thought he was kind of a game manager, and LeBron was kind of like the coach for the team. Come to find out, man, Spoelstra is a winning record with the Heat. He hadn't had any really losing seasons to speak of. All things considered, his team was completely broken up, and he was able to maintain. But Miami is the better team in my opinion, and I think they need to take care of business with Indy before they find themselves on the outside looking in, because that could easily happen in this series.
Yeah, I have to agree with you, man. But I've realized Spoelstra was just more than a Mike Brown type of coach. You know that's
My God, it's my guy. I keep telling you about.
well, I
We'll
had
get,
to.
we'll get down. We'll get down.
Anytime I could throw a jab at Mike Brown, man, I will, man. But I mean, the reality, he's not Mike Brown. He's not a product of somebody else helping. Even though he did have a few decent years in L.A. before they took him off of that podium. Spoelstra is just a different type of dude, man. He comes from up under that Pat Riley situation, man. And if Pat Riley had really been serious people that learned from his method, is definitely Eric Spoelstra. So I expect him always to come out and have great games. Let's move on to the next matchup that's also on the docket. We have the Thunder versus the Rockets. That's the 5:30 game that precedes the Heat game. The Pacers now up 37-30 right now in the matchup here. Warren has 5 in the matchup. But moving on, the Heat, the Thunder and Rockets. This is an interesting matchup as well. Both of these teams have the same record. It's similar to the Miami Heat and the Pacer matchup in the West. As both these teams, they have identical records. A lot of people didn't perceive OKC being where they are. A lot of people believe the Pelicans, including myself, would be where OKC is, and OKC would be out of the playoffs looking at. What we didn't realize is that they actually have a coach that knows what he's doing in Billy Donovan. And Donovan's excellent. 44-28. He used Chris Paul, and then, of course, NAW's cousin, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, has been spectacular with him, and he's been able to take that team, which was a mishmash of parts, and make it work. Now they face a Rocket team that is without Russell Westbrook. Do they have enough to win this game? Five.
I'm gonna go ahead on a limb and say that I think top to bottom overall, I think that OKC is a from a talent perspective, I think it's the Rockets. But from a team perspective, especially with Chris Paul, skinnier Chris Paul, I should say, who has an axe to grind with these people. And I think that between coaching and that veteran leadership with Chris Paul getting in those guys' heads and kind of letting them know the inner makeup and the inner workings of Houston, they got a spy working among them, if that makes sense to you. So it's not like Houston has changed their format. Their format is we're going to outscore you. I could imagine him and Harden going at it in practice. I could imagine Chris Paul understanding that whole entire system and the way it works, and I could also imagine him dropping some nice dimes on what the game plan is for tonight and the rest of this series. And I think that with that inside track, also like as you had pointed out, their coaching is just way better than Houston's is. I think Houston has a lot of plug and play pieces, and I think pretty much all season long they've been trying to figure out what's going to work, what's not going to work, and they've been trying to make adjustments on the fly, which is great. Don't get me wrong, but sometimes you got to have a solid game plan, and you got to stick to that game plan, and you got to adhere to that game plan. That's why you went and got Westbrook, because in your mind you figured, hey, we're a really good team and a championship contending team. So if we were able to move the Majin Buu Chris Paul, the fat Chris Paul, and we got Westbrook in, Westbrook is a much more dynamic and better player than Chris Paul is. So We're going to bring him in, and that's going to intensify our team. And we were good with Chris Paul. We're going to be exceptionally good to phenomenal with Westbrook. The thing I think they didn't account for was the fact they didn't have they played in the Western Conference. They refused to acknowledge that size and height was an important factor, and I think that as far as usage is concerned, they've balanced it pretty well. But when you have two guards that are primarily same issue you have in Portland, when but the issue is CJ McCollum has kind of fallen into the background role and is definitely Dame Dollar's team. But in Houston, I don't think you have that situation. Harden, I mean, Westbrook came to Harden's team, but Westbrook came with his own accolades as well. He came as an MVP. He came as a triple double wizard. So I mean, it's not like he hadn't played on big stages before. So when he comes to this team, although they've had a history and they are friends, from what I could tell anyway, especially far back is when they were growing up out in California. Now is a situation where you got two guys, which he's not even going to play tonight, so it's not a factor. But in this series overall, if he would ever to return, you got two guys that are really acting as one. You have no bigs, so you got to rely on Harden. And much like in Portland, if Harden is not going to put up 45, 50, 60 points, I just think that this is going to be a tough game for the Rockets to win tonight.
Rockets coming into this one, man, losers of 3 in a row, man. So it's going to be interesting to see just how they can recoup. And they're reeling right now, especially without Westbrook. Harden's going to have to be the guy that takes care of it. But we'll see how they do, because Oklahoma, they definitely have talent. They could throw at Harden, at least slow him down. You won't stop him, but to slow him down. And you're right. I think Donovan is a better overall coach than what Houston has. And OKC could come away with this series if Houston's not careful. Of course, Houston has a lot of struggles. You better watch it, because the Thunder, man, they're serious. They got enough veteran leadership. They know how to play defense. They can shoot the three as well. And Schroeder is not going to play in this game tonight, but they don't really need Schroeder. Westbrook is also out, so it's going to be interesting. Watch out, Houston fans, because OKC can take this thing. I'm telling you, watch out.
I think they can. I think it's point out the law number 14 in 48 laws of power. Pose as a friend, work as a spy. And I think Chris Paul will be James Bond tonight.
Okay. All right. Well said. And nice little way to kind of slide the 48 laws of power in there. Okay. Let's move on to let's.
Yeah. See what I did there?
Yeah, I do. I do have that book. I do have. But let's move to the next one here. And of course, the big matchup here, Mozzi, Uncle Mozzi, is the fact that this is the one where everybody's going to be watching. This is the star power game. This is LeBron, Anthony Davis against Lillard, against well, actually, let me rephrase that: a pissed off Lillard and CJ McCullough. And you mentioned Chris Paul, the fat Majin Buu version of Chris Paul. How about the slimmed down, trimmed down Ultra Instinct farm of Carmelo Anthony as they take on the Lakers 8 o'clock Central Time? What's your call on this one?
Well, I mean, hey, listen, I don't like. I was born a Lakers fan. I bleed purple and gold, but I'm not a LeBron fan. I think we've gone over that in great specificity.
Yes.
AD also leaves a really undesirable taste in my mouth, considering he left us high and dry here in New Orleans. So
I wouldn't say high and dry, Five.
He left us pretty high and dry. Hey man,
we got draft picks. We also have a young. Yeah. That Gentry screwed all that up. But anyway, make your point, bro. I'm sorry.
That's no problem. But listen, I think the Lakers are going to take this. Overall, I think what we discussed the other. I think the Lakers are going to probably take it in 6. It depends, man. Dame has got to come out, man. He's going to have 40. It's the same thing we just were discussing about James Harden. If he's not going to put up 45, 50 a game, I just don't see how they're going to win this game and any other game. I'm going to just be honest. It's just way too much. It's just way too much. Whiteside, they're going to need good production out of Whiteside. They're going to need really good production out of Gary Jr. He can't have those 7, 8, 9-point games. Gary Jr. going to have to come up with 20 points. CJ McCollum going to have to drop 25. Hassan Whiteside going to have to be a unbelievable rim protector. He's going to have to lock AD up. I mean, that's just what's going to have to happen. And you're going to still need them 45 from Dame Dollar. That's it.
Okay, you said a mouthful. I think, and I think they'll be motivated to do that. The point is, during out the duration of this series, Five, I'm looking at the fact that the Lakers really don't have anything that can slow a very motivated CJ McCullough and Dame Dollar down. I mean, that's the bottom line. They don't have anything to throw at him. Now they have point guards on this team, Quinn Cook and a few other guys. I guess so they could throw J.R. Smith at him to slow him down as well. But really, man, they don't have anything that can line. Now
You know,
Rondo's not available. Even if Rondo was available, defensively speaking, he would be hard pressed to have anything to do. They hit the Lakers where it hurts,
yep.
and in the backcourt, and I think that could be an issue for them in the series.
I don't believe in guards. I don't believe in guard-driven teams, though. You know that. I know that the dynamic has changed. I know that the game is different. I get all of that, but I just do not believe in a two guard driven team. If you had a big shooting guard, yeah, maybe a point guard with a big to kind of compliment him, yeah, but two guards that have to lead the charge over, LeBron who could I honestly play guard and
I
defend
don't
every
know,
position on the
Mozzie.
floor.
I don't know, Mozzie. I think that
Uh,
the two guard approach works for Portland
I
because
just don't
these are
believe in two
they're
guards.
two big guards. I mean, Lillard's 6'3" and McCullough's what 6'4". So I mean, they're not exactly two small 6'1" guards that they're running out like something I guess similar to what a Cleveland would do. That's why they're the bottom feeder. But I mean,
Right.
that's not just them. They're the face of it. You know, Dame Dollar, he's the face. With McCullough is his perfect complement. But if you look at what's behind him, you have the ultra interesting form of Carmelo Anthony, who's lighting things up. He's playing really, really well. Nobody's talking about that. There's Nurkic, who was hurt last year, who's back healthy. He's a rim protector, and he also can score the ball. And there's several other really excellent people that serve as role players to those guys, and they're playing with a lot of emotion. Their focus, and Terry Stott, who's a veteran coach, knows what he's doing. So he
Mhm.
had difficulty motivating his team, but I think the NBA restarting what happened, and of course what happened with Skip Skeletor, Bayless, and Lillard kind of helped fuse this Portland Trailblazer team who were really upset a few years ago for what the Pelicans did to them. The
Mhm.
following year they came into it, they looked better. They kind of went back to sleep, but they've come online at the right time, right at the onset of the playoffs. And like I said, I can't overstate this, is the fact that they're incredibly diverse as a team, Portland. They have a really good coach, Terry Stotts. Nobody don't really talk about that, man. But they hit the Lakers in the chest where it hurts in that backcourt. There is no matchups that they have that can put on those guys to slow them down. They got bodies they can prop up in front of them. But when they start circulating that ball and stuff start falling, the Trailblazers are a little bit more balanced as far as personnel than what the Lakers are. We're looking at LeBron and Anthony Davis, of course, and nobody could stop them from either one of those teams. But there's a Hassan Whiteside you can throw up against a guy like Anthony Davis to kind of frustrate him a bit. There is a guy named Nurkic who also who can guard Anthony Davis around the basket, I guess you could say, not away from the basket, but he can guard him if he needs to. If he steps out in that four range and plays that finesse four, of course he can't do that. But Whiteside can prop up against him, and Carmelo Anthony that's the straightaway matchup. I don't know if they'll put Carmelo on top of LeBron to guard him because LeBron will be operating at the point forward position. So if that's the case, he might be seeing a lot of the Lillard or McCullough matchups depending on how they look. But still in all, this is a very difficult matchup for the Lakers right now. And I'm just saying, this could be a 7-game series right here. Of course, the Lakers will come out with it because the NBA wants to see the Lakers win. So they will be trying to help them referee per se wise. But this is a tough matchup in any stretch of the imagination. The Lakers are in trouble in this series, if you ask me.
Yeah, I don't see it. But I'm gonna just be honest with you. I don't believe in ghosts, and Portland is Casper right now, and I don't know. Two guards. I, I am a Whiteside fan. I'd love to have him down here to work with us, but I mean, I just don't see it. I just think that I think the Lakers have just way too much. And I mean, it's again, I can't conceivably see a man scoring 50 points a game and needing all 50 of those points to win by the slimmest margin of victory. I just don't. I do not see that him doing that for 4 games. I just don't. I don't.
Okay.
It's impossible. And keep in mind, because you got to understand, Gary Jr. and Whiteside and McCollum, these people, and Skinny Mello, Ultra Instinct Mello, all these people had decent games the entire way through the bubble. It wasn't like it was just Dame Dollar and nobody else, it wasn't that. Because, I mean, they don't play any defense. These team was scoring 130, 140 points. Yeah, he put up 50, but somebody else had to put up the other 80. So it wasn't like these teams weren't scoring. It wasn't like the rest of the players didn't score. They weren't getting buckets. Of course they were getting buckets. It's just the fact that Dame Dollar had way more buckets. The issue is nobody plays defense. And LA, I mean, LA will, they play decent enough defense to take your best player out. So if LeBron has to lock up Dame Dollar, the Lakers still from top to bottom with LeBron using most of his energy on the defensive side of the ball, the Lakers still have enough depth. They have on their bench, they have the rest of the starters from top to bottom. It's just too much. And we both know that if you nullified Dame Dollar and took him out the game where you held him under 25 points, this team doesn't win. So LeBron doesn't have to contain him and lock him up and stop him completely. Just stop him from these logo threes, logo littles from the logo threes, and just hold him to 25. They lose. So even if that meant LeBron had to sacrifice a dozen or so of his points, don't you think that they're capable of making that up between Kuzma and Smith and Davis? Of course they are. So everybody on Portland can still do whatever it is they do on a daily basis. Just let's get Dame down from 45 to 25, and we win all day long.
That's a lot. That's a tall order. But just to look at what Danny Green said, he says, we know what time it is. He says, we have a lot of vets on this team. You know, it's time to lock in and focus regardless of what's happening before the bubble, in the bubble, up to this point. None of it matters. We have to be ready from the tip. That was a quote from Danny Green, who I guess you can call Danny Green has somewhat of a defense. He can knock your eyes out when he's hot, but when he's cold, he's a nightmare. Of course, Lakers coach Vogel said that guard, and this is good information right here, that we might see Rajon Rondo in this series. It said Rondo has been medically cleared to play after having surgery on his fractured thumb back in July the 15th, but it's unlikely that he'll play in game one. Now, he practiced Monday for the first time since breaking the thumb and practiced on July the 12th. Now, the Lakers, like I said, are in 7 years, are 9-2 in the playoff series all time against the Blazers. Portland advanced to the Western Conference Finals last season before they were swept by the Golden State Warriors. So Terry Stotts, like I said, it'll be an interesting matchup because Danny Green is right. They do have a lot of pieces, and we'll see which team really wants it more. All right, just a little quick breakdown on the game going on right now. The Pacers and the Heat are tied up at 48 apiece right here, 3 minutes remaining in the second. Before halftime, Miami having its win this quarter. They're winning the quarter 21-15. Butler is the top dude there. Remember, a lot of people forget Andre Iguodala is on this team as well. So that is also really interesting as well. So T.J. Warren with 6, Brogdon with 6, 3 from Drew Holiday's brother, and Aaron Holiday. So right now, 48-48. Actually, it just turned 50. He just went up 50-48. 3:29 remaining in the second
Did
half.
you see that lack of defense? That looked like something you do in elementary school or AAU. It's not on the NBA level. My God, he just ran completely free through the back door of the defense. Did you see that?
Yeah, I'm looking at some of the stuff now.
Man.
All right, let's move on. And just to acknowledge some of the family members chiming in the live stream. Thank you, family, for supporting TSC Unleased. That's right, TSC Unleashed is a show where we talk about other sports, family. Now, like I've said this before, is that originally the Sports Coma show was a combination of several different sport talking points, the Saints, the Pelicans, LSU, and then we also talk boxing as well. And we did that all within a circumference of 1 hour, believe it or not. So now is it that we kind of niched it down a bit, but we kind of going back to our roots insofar as talking about some of the sports that we love. And I hope you guys can enjoy that too. I know you sports lovers, and we also, Saints fans, Pelicans fans as well, and sports lovers as well. So I hope y'all just share that enthusiasm and that love with the sports with us as we do the TSC Unleashed shows on a daily basis. And I'll see if you guys like that. We kind of beta tested it last week, and we got good replies back on it. So we're going to push forward. Thank you, GM Kev, for being here. Mr. Jerry, thank you as well. True Louisianimal, I Struce it, Kelly Bell. Big ups to your family. T Dirty. Good to see my man T Dirty in the building. He said, I'm just here to say who that for life, Big Q. I'm a football fanatic, so I'll see you on the flip side. 100. Thank you. Appreciate that. That's real love. T Dirty, appreciate you chiming in on there. as well. Much love to you, my brother. And also Lee Wood. What's up, Lee? Chiming in from the Philippines, showing love. Good to see Lee in the building. Big ups to you, Lee. John Thompson as well. And B Jizzle. What up, B Jizzle? Good to see your family in the chat as well. So let's move into the next item of the show, and this is the last item. SEC football, for all my SEC people out there. Little college football talk on this side of the things is the SEC football schedule was talked about, and we're going to cover that here. The SEC's rolled out its 10-game schedules, and this was yesterday, and there are some fantastic matchups on deck. Of course, most people, if you haven't realized or heard that the SEC is going to go to an all-conference schedule, and, they've added a few games, a game or so on to the existing schedule here, and we have the entire SEC schedule here. Also, we're going to talk about the SEC to just moments, a few minutes ago, maybe 3 hours or so ago. They announced stadium attendance guidelines, which has mass mandates. We'll cover that behind this original story. So SEC football 2020 on deck. The SEC intends to move forward and play the 2020 college football season. On Monday, the league officially released its retooled 10-game conference schedule as previously announced by the SEC commissioner and his board of advisors. A number of big-time games have been moved as a result of the adjusted schedule. The Florida Gator game, the Florida and Georgia game, which takes place within 7 days of the Halloween weekend, will instead be played in the new Week 7 on November the 7th. The game is still scheduled for Jacksonville, Florida. Now, speaking of the Gators, their annual rivalry at Tennessee has been moved to December the 5th, marking the first time since the 2001 season that the game will be played in the last week of the year. Now, although the Iron Bowl between Alabama and Auburn will stay at November the 28th date, it will no longer be the last regular season game of the season for either team. The Crimson Tide travel to Arkansas the following week with the Tigers hosting Texas A&M. Each SEC team has built a built-in bye week between weeks 5 and 7, plus a conference-wide open week on December the 12th to accommodate any disruptions that might occur. The SEC championship game, originally scheduled for December the 5th at the Mercedes-Benz Stadium in Atlanta, will instead be played on December the 19th. So the championship game pushed back to December the 19th. Now, the first week of SEC football, for those who want to know, will be September the 26th of next month. And the games that's on slate for the SEC: Alabama at Missouri, Florida at Ole Miss, Georgia at Arkansas, Kentucky at Auburn. Mississippi State will play LSU, Tennessee at South Carolina, Vanderbilt and Texas A&M. Week 2 is October the 3rd, Texas A&M and Alabama, Arkansas, Mississippi State, Auburn and Georgia, South Carolina and Florida, Ole Miss at Kentucky, LSU at Vanderbilt, Missouri at Tennessee. And then, of course, there are matchups from week 3, that's October the 10th week, which has a highlight of Florida and Texas A&M, Missouri at LSU. And for my LSU people out there, we'll be doing the Tough Tiger Talk Saturday morning, covering SEC schedule, and we'll give you all the latest stuff on the news from our LSU football Tigers on the Tough Tiger Talk podcast. Now, going in the rest of them, week 4, highlighted matchups, you see Texas A&M at Mississippi State, LSU and Florida as well, Auburn and South Carolina, Georgia at Alabama. Week 5, October the 24th, features games like Auburn at Ole Miss, South Carolina and LSU, Georgia and Kentucky, Alabama and Tennessee. Week 6, which is October the 31st, has Mississippi State at Alabama, LSU at Auburn, Ole Miss, Vanderbilt. And week 7, November the 7th, Tennessee at Arkansas, Texas A&M at South Carolina, Vanderbilt, Mississippi State, Florida, Georgia at Jacksonville. And then, of course, week 7 is biased for the Crimson Tide, Auburn, LSU, Kentucky, Ole Miss, and Missouri. Week 8, Alabama, LSU. In week 8, the big game of the SEC. And, of course, you see games like Auburn at Mississippi, Georgia, Missouri, Texas A&M, Tennessee, South Carolina, Ole Miss. And then it goes on and on. Week 9, which is the 21st, LSU, Arkansas, Ole Miss, Texas A&M, Mississippi State, Georgia, Missouri, South Carolina, Kentucky, and Alabama. Week 10 is November the 28th, late November, Auburn, Alabama, LSU, Texas A&M, Georgia, South Carolina, Kentucky, Florida. Week 11, which is December the 5th, Alabama at Arkansas, Texas A&M at Auburn, Vanderbilt, Georgia, South Carolina, Kentucky, Ole Miss, LSU, Missouri at Mississippi State. So that's just a little bit of it. Just to throw in that the league agreed to modify its schedule at the end of July and announced early in August that the teams will be given those additional games on top of their normal 8-game conference schedule. Now, naturally, not everyone came out a winner, and the reports indicated that coaches and conferences got contentious over the competitive imbalances, if you will. But still, football isn't alike, and it is at least planned to, but it's as far as from given as what will happen as the 2020 season unfold, we dealing with a pandemic. And if it gets better, this could definitely impact college just like it would impact any other professional sport or any public venue going on. So with all that being said, Uncle Mozzi, we broke it down. SEC schedule. What you think?
Man, first of all, just want to say the SEC must have bought the bottle of beer at 12 o'clock because you know they done messed up, right? LSU going to win this national championship again. I'm looking at this schedule, man. We ain't going to touch too much on it today because I know we got Tough Tiger Talk Saturday, but man, considering we don't really we don't start playing till October 3rd because we got like Mississippi State and Missouri or something like that. I'm sorry, we don't start playing until October the 17th. So we got Missouri, we got Vanderbilt, we got Mississippi State. So that's 3 dubs right there, man. In my book, before we even get to Florida, and you don't know what Florida team you're gonna get. You don't know if you're gonna get the team, the Tim Tebow led type Florida team, or if you're gonna get the Chris Leaks Florida team. So I mean, that may be another dub going forward there. And then you got South Carolina. That's not hitting for too much. Um, Auburn. I mean, that'd be kind of tough game, and it's a Halloween game. Halloween is on. I think the most important thing we learned from the whole SEC scheduling was that Halloween is on Saturday. So, in the words of Bushwick, Halloween fell on the weekend. We play Auburn. I think we're gonna take that one. That's gonna be a really good game too. Haven't had that in a while. And then circle our calendar, man. November 14th, we go and try to give Saban another black eye. Other than that, I love what they've done. I think it's masterful. I think all the other conferences should really take a look at what the SEC has managed to do, and which I mean, we have a lot of teams, and I know every conference doesn't have the same lineup that we have, but I mean, they can make it competitive enough to where they can make it work if they really wanted something to work. The SEC, as usual, man. This is why they're the best. This is why they lead the NCAA and have for the better part of 20 years because they just know how to do it. Like New England knows how to do it. The Bulls knew how to do it. These guys, the SEC just knows how to do it. In same fashion, the NBA with the bubble and the representation and how easy that's been with all those moving parts. Some people just know how to do it, and the SEC knows how to do it. So all of these other conferences, take note. We're the best that ever was, best that ever will be. LSU national championship bound again. Saban, get ready, get your steak for the November 14th, or the Rousers or whatever. Get your steak, put on that other eye, and we'll be hosting that trophy up again here in January.
Yep, it's gonna be interesting, man, and I'm just happy to see that football is back. We got playoff basketball on tap right now. Really excited as a sports fan. Even though my Pelicans are not involved in the process, still a lot of star power involved to see really nice matchups in some of these NBA games. The college is saying now SEC is going to roll through. It's pretty much all SEC scheduling, really tough things going on. LSU, man, we got this, man. This could be a year in which the Saints capture the Super Bowl and LSU because they really were supposed to do that last year. Was supposed to double up. This was supposed to be just one of those phenomenal things, and I think this time around we're gonna get it. So let's move on right here. Let's keep it moving. We're gonna go into the next layer of this, which is the SEC then announces. You spoke about the SEC basically trailblazing through this C-19 stuff, Mozzie. Now the SEC announced stadium attendance guidelines, and you talked about this. You touched upon this on the last Tough Tiger Talk in great depth toward the back end of the podcast. Mass mandates for the 2020 college football season. Is your concerns about how these young people are going to act? Well, the conference has gotten it together, and the conference is leaving many attendance decisions up to the school, but the masks are a requirement. This is what they've done. The SEC is leaving many decisions regarding the attendance up to the 14 member institutions as the league moves ahead with planned start date of September the 26th for its 10-game conference-only football season. But there is one key requirement. The league is mandated in fan health and health guidelines released Tuesday that fans must wear masks or face coverings at specified times. Now, face coverings means over the nose and mouth shall be required as a condition for all guests ingress, egress, and movement throughout the stadium, as well as any guests that are unable to maintain the requirement physical distance from others who are not in the same household, the league guidelines said. Now, the league also mandated the stadium workers and athletic staff wear face coverings at all times inside game venues. Here are some notable attendance protocols which the league announced on Tuesday, one day after it unveiled its complete schedule for the 2020 season. It says, these are some of the bullet points, mind you. Institutions shall determine the number of guests permitted to attend in accordance with applicable state and local guidelines, policies, or regulation. In the absence of state and local guidelines, policies, or regulations, the CDC recommendations on physical distancing should be applied. Barriers shall be installed at all points of sale or otherwise all concessions. Staff shall wear face coverings as well. Okay, queuing lines at the point of sale shall permit physical distance between the guests. Grab and go food, beverage items should be considered at points of sale locations. All tickets shall be digitally scanned. Institutions shall have documented plan that outlines the procedures, protocols for appropriate disinfection of the stadium. Institutions shall have a documented plan that outlines the procedures, protocols for working with guests who exhibit C-19 symptoms. Institutions shall launch a communication public relations campaign for communicating all of these protocols and procedures to prospective guests. And then the final bullet point is the individual schools will decide whether the whole teams walks to the stadium, but if they take place, the league will require everyone attending, including players and staff, wear face coverings. The issue of the tailgating will also be an institutional decision. A lot of people had questions. Can we tailgate? That's up to the school. And then, of course, finally, these fan guidelines have been adopted by all of the school members of the Southeast Conference as baseline recommendations for the campus management of fan health and safety. That comes from the SEC Commissioner Greg Sankey. Now, his quote was, although local and state guidelines will determine if and how many fans can attend these games, these guidelines provide conference-wide expectations for protection of guests who are able to attend our games. So that's a mouthful. And that speaks exclusive about a lot of stuff that we covered on the last show. How does it look like? What does it do? And none. Well, here you go. Here you go for the SEC people. And listen, just like I said, if you go and you span across the rest of the college football world, a lot of these same guidelines will be adapted league-wide in the college football world. So that's a little bit of it, man. That's interesting because we'll see if it, and like we said, and I see you on there, GM Kev, he says he wants to tailgate. That's up to the institution. That's going to be up to the school. Big shout out to Ice Cream Man 504. What's going on, fam? Thank you for your support and all the family members that's out there that's supporting TSC Unleashed. Now, you're going to get to the tail end, the back end of that. I'm going to have Mozzi to come in and give his thoughts on the SEC protocols, health protocols, because he really spoke about that really ingenuously and in depth and passionately on the last Tough Tiger Talk show. We'll get him to chime in that momentarily. The Miami Heat, 56-52 at halftime, are leading the Indiana Pacers. Very close game. We anticipated this game was going to be close like it is, and we're not kidding. It really is close. Right now, sitting at halftime, top scorers in the game, Jimmy Butler, 14 points for the Miami Heat, 12 points from Bam Adebayo, who has 12 and 4. He's really turned into something. A hero off the bench has 9 as the Heat are up there. And, of course, the Pacers, their top scorer right now is 10 points for Malcolm Brogdon. Both T.J. Warren and Holiday have 9 points apiece, 6 points from Sampson off the bench. So currently right now 56-52. This will be a real close series. I probably will put my money on Miami to pull this one out. So, of course, a lot of family members that know the Orlando matchup. Orlando took down the Milwaukee Bucks today, 122-110 in the surpriser. Of course, following this matchup, the Miami Heat Pacer matchup, you have the 5:30 Central game, which is OKC at Houston. Russell Westbrook is not in this game. He's not in there. And OKC doesn't have Schroeder, so both of those teams face off. And, of course, the really mega matchup tonight between Dame Dollar and LeBron James and Anthony Davis at 8 o'clock Central Time. Watch out for that game, too. A lot of these recaps and games will come back tomorrow on TSC Unleashed and cover these games around this same time frame. We're trying to work on the time frame to decide on where we want this to be, but we'll be covering the recaps of today's games tomorrow, and of course give previews for the following matchups on that same day. So I'd like to thank you there. But also, I'd like to appreciate all the family members for joining in this edition of TSCQ and I mean not TSCQ, TSC Unleashed. That's the good one. And momentarily, family, after this we discontinue this or stop the stream, we'll be having a sports coma coming up, and we'll be covering. It's just to be a brief sports coma. We'll go over some news about Andrews Pete. We'll get in there and see what's going on with that, and we'll also have a few news items we'll cover. Look at some depth situation behind them, and we'll see what happens there. We'll talk about that. Also, the fact that the Saints the other day also had a few people that came in. Because Andrews Pete, we might lose him for a few weeks or so, but it's also a Josh Hill component too. As we were looking at free agents, we'll cover a little bit on the next sports coma. Will be coming up really soon, so just hit your notification button from where. So I'd like to thank all the family members for joining us on this edition of TSC Q&A. Once again, if you like TSC Q&A, appreciate you, GM Kevs, your super chat. Thank you, sir. Appreciating that. And that's why we doing it, man. We covering the sports, man, like we throwing that. So I thank GM Kev for the super chat. Appreciate that, family. Much love to you and Yearns on this one. For doing that. Like I said, family, we'll be back. We shall be back. If you're following the show and you're not subscribed, please hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, and remember to always share the link on your social media feed as the Sports Coma version, the Unleashed. Now, the sports coma, the regular sports coma, will be coming at you in a little bit. Today's schedule is kind of throw it at you quick before we get off air. But behind the TSC Unleashed, we'll have the sports coma, and then later on tonight will be a TSC Q&A for our Patreon and YouTube members. That is at 6:00, and that will be the circumference of today's program. And so later on, we'll see you in that, and we'll see you in a few minutes covering the Saints talk. So I thank all you guys for joining us on the stream. Y'all be safe, and I'll see many of y'all in a few minutes. Thank you. Peace. We out.